Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Adriana and today I'm here to bring you another collective book haul because why not? But before I get into that, I just really want to say thank you all so much for 3,000 subscribers. It's so surreal to think that at some point in time, more than 3,000 of you clicked on this channel and thought that what you saw was so worthwhile that you hit the subscribe button. You have all supported me and validated me in so many ways, so many times over. I just want to say that I don't take any of it for granted. I really and truly appreciate you all and thank you. So with that said, let's get into the books I got in May and June because there's a lot of them. Surprise, surprise. The first book I got in May was If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. Listen, if I haven't said this enough at this point, this is amazing own voices trans fiction. It's about a trans character written by a trans author and there's a trans cover model on the front of the book. It's just great. I actually read this book in May and I discussed it at length in my May wrap-up, which I will link down below, but it's amazing, essential, a must-read. That's what you need to know. Then I picked up Lumberjanes Volume 3, A Terrible Plan. Confession time, I used a Barnes & Noble coupon that was intended to be a Mother's Day deal to get this volume for myself, and I probably should feel ashamed, but mostly I'm just excited to continue on with this series. Then on a shopping trip with my friends, I got a copy of The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. In the interest of full disclosure, I had not yet started the first book when I purchased this one, but I'm still glad I got the sequel ahead of time because I was able to get into it not too long after having read the first book. I did just recently finish this one, so you will hear me talk more about it in my July wrap-up. Then I got the first two books in a middle grade series, and those are The Curiosity House, The Shrunken Head, and The Curiosity House, The Screaming Statue, both by Lauren Oliver and H.C. Chester. I'm really excited about this series because I know that Ivan has read both of these books and loved them both, and I think he described them to me as like American Horror Story Freak Show meets the series of unfortunate events maybe, and that just sounds like a heaping stack of yes. From what I understand, this is like a creepy mystery adventure series about this group of orphans with extraordinary abilities who have grown up in this museum for freaks, oddities, and wonders, and it just sounds great. Then I got a secondhand copy of The Privilege of the Sword by Ellen Kushner, which is the second book in her Riverside trilogy. For one of the classes I took last fall, I had to read the first book in this trilogy, Swords Point. I talked about that in my October wrap-up. I really liked it. I was very pleasantly surprised because it was a queer fantasy of manners and just an incredible story overall, so I definitely wanted to continue on with book 2. What's really cool is that this is a companion trilogy, so the protagonist in this is completely different from the first book. She is a female, she is bisexual, and I guess you could say I'm very excited for this. Then, what feels like forever ago, I pre-ordered the second and final omnibus edition of Orange by Takano Ishigo. It's about this girl named Naho who suddenly starts receiving letters from her future self about the boy she loves, who she realizes is no longer alive in their future, and she has to wonder whether she can change that fact and change the future just by being a better friend and knowing what lies ahead. I read this series in its entirety last year and I absolutely loved it. I even did a Manga Monday video about it, so I will link that video down below in case you want to know more about the series. But now it's more beloved than ever before, and it has this amazing, incredible anime adaptation to go along with it now that's currently airing and that's way too good for this world, and I just want even more people to read it and love it. Then I also pre-ordered the paperback edition of The Gods of Tango by Carolina de Robertes. This is another one I mentioned in my A to Z of Queer Lit video, its own voices, about a character named Leda who travels to Buenos Aires in 1913, only to find out that the husband she was betrothed to is dead and she can no longer return home. She does, however, become very involved in the underground world of the tango, and she starts disguising herself as a man so she can join a troupe of musicians. As I said in my other video, the author actually came to my school and gave a talk and read from this book, and all of the excerpts she read sounded absolutely incredible and lush and rich, and I just can't wait to read it. And then, somewhat impulsively, I got And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Listen, I'm a huge lover of classic mystery novels. I used to inhale read so many of them when I was younger, but somehow I've never read a book by Agatha Christie, which honestly just baffles me, so I had to get this as a place to start. Then I have another impulse buy, and that is Throne of Jade by Naomi Novik. This is the sequel to His Majesty's Dragon, which I have not yet read, but Ivan and I were toying around with the idea of reading the first book in this series sometime relatively soon, and I was just so excited about that. I was like, let me go out and get the sequel. even though I don't need it yet. Story of my life, am I right, ladies? Then I picked up volume 1 of I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. From what I understand, this series is about a 6-year-old girl who's sucked into fairyland against her will, and then she's trapped there for 20 or 30 years, never aging, and the longer she stays there, the more her heart is just filled with complete and utter hatred for fairyland. It's supposed to be extremely grotesque and violent and twisted, a very different iteration of fairyland than we've seen in the past, and honestly, it just sounds right up my alley. Then at Ivan's recommendation, I got Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is a middle grade story about a young girl named Finley who's dealing with anxiety and depression, especially in relation to her parents' imminent divorce. And so to cope with that, she usually writes about this fantastical forest called the Everwood. And when she goes to stay with her grandparents for the summer, she feels like the Everwood is closer than ever before. This is another book you'll be hearing me talk more about in my July wrap-up, but I absolutely loved it. It was incredible, so important, and I'm very happy that this book exists. Then I have a book I recently talked about in my June wrap-up, and that is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is queer lit. The protagonist is asexual. Her name is Nancy, and she's sent to the sanatorium for wayward children, which takes in kids who have been rejected from various fantasy worlds and who now need to be reacclimated to reality. Honestly, there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't thought about this incredible story. It's so fantastic and surprising and wonderful. I very highly recommend it. Then at the end of May, I finally got my physical copy of The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This was like the book that would never come, and I was wholly convinced that I would never have a physical copy of this book, and it would be hard for me to accept this book's existence if I didn't hold it in my hands. And I had so many problems with my Amazon pre-order that it just got to this point where I was playing it way too close to the chest and I had to cancel my order, and I decided, F it, I'm gonna place an order through an independent bookstore called the Fountain Bookstore. That's gonna get me not only this beautiful book, but a signed art plate made by Maggie Stiefvater and a doodle and some bookmarks as well. So honestly, it was worth it. Plus, this book was sensational and it destroyed me, but hey, that's just a bonus. Would you believe me if I said all the books I just mentioned were books I got in May alone? Yeah, it was one of those months, so just let me quickly take you through the 4 books I got in June. The first book I got in June was another pre-order, and that was You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. I actually just did a full spoiler-free video review for this book, which I will link down below in case you want to hear more of my thoughts. But basically, I love this book. It was so well written. It felt like it was written with earnestness and honesty at the forefront, and it just had this amazing, palpable, infectious energy that I really enjoyed. So this is another one I would very highly recommend. Then I picked up Chew Volume 11, The Last Suppers by John Layman and Rob Guillory. This is the latest and penultimate volume in the Chew series, which, if you live under a rock, is my favorite comic series of all time. I read all the previous volumes in this series through my library. I just wasn't feeling particularly patient this time around, so I just gave in and bought this. But I haven't read it yet because I feel like that in part would be accepting that this series is going to be over soon, and frankly, I don't accept that. Then I got the UK version of This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. Honestly, I don't even have the patience to describe this book right now because I'm still really salty over it, because I read it recently, so excited, so ready to love this book, and it just left me feeling so confused because it was so good in so many ways, but it was also so bad in so many ways, and I have not for the life of me been able to parse through these emotions, so I have no idea what I feel. So I guess that's something to look forward to. And finally, the last book I have to show you is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. This is queer lit. The main character is Juliet Milagros Palante, who is a lesbian Puerto Riqueña stressing about when she's gonna come out to her family. She kind of unceremoniously blurts it out during her farewell dinner on her last night in the Bronx before she flies out to Oregon to intern for her favorite feminist author. This book is everything. It's absolutely essential. I identified with Juliet's struggle even more than I thought I would, and I already knew this was going to be incredible queer Latinx representation. Just please read this book. I will link my Goodreads review for this book down below in case you want to know even more about my thoughts. So those are all the books I bought in recent months. If you have any thoughts on the billion books I just mentioned in this video or any recommendations based off any of these books, please let me know in the comments down below. But that is everything I had for this book haul today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page. Bye.